Hi, everyone. Welcome to Profiles in Innovation, where we talk about Brandesian innovators who are making a difference in the world. And today we have the honor of being here with Juan Giraldo, the outgoing Spark program manager, who has brought his deep experience of entrepreneurship, his care for students, and his creativity to our work in the Brandeis Virtual Incubator for many years now. And we are going to talk about his journey today as both an entrepreneur and an entrepreneurship educator. Very excited to have Juan here. Welcome, Juan.
Thank you for having me, Christina.
So, as I mentioned, you are both an entrepreneur and an entrepreneurship educator, which is often the case for people in entrepreneurship education. Tell me a little bit about your startup and about your entrepreneurial journey.
Sure. So I currently lead a beverage company called Waku Tea, where we're basically the new generation of tea. We bring pop and fun to the traditional ready-to-drink tea category. So same sweet, refreshing, fruity taste as the iced teas you probably grew up drinking, but instead of 50 grams of sugar, only 3 to 4. Instead of 160 calories, only 25 to 30. And then we add prebiotic fiber to maximize for gut health benefits. I I ended up in CPG just because when I moved to the States, I wanted to stay connected to Ecuador, my home country, somehow. And so this venture allows me to do that because we source our herbs from independent farmers in the south of Ecuador. And so the more we scale the company in the States, the more impact we can have back home. And that was, long story short, the main reason why I ended up here. But coming back to my entrepreneurial experience, um, I think it goes well back to my childhood because my parents, both of them, have started their own businesses. And my mom, 34 years ago, she started a private school back in Quito, in Ecuador, that ended up being the whole family business up until today. My parents are now retired, and my siblings run the school. But for 30, I believe 30 years, my mom led it, and then my dad at some point, maybe right in the middle after 10 years of the company being started, he sold his business and then joined my mom to fully focus there. And so while growing up, it was always a part of the family to talk about Planeta Azul School. That's the name of their business. And so, after I finished high school, I ventured into entertainment and advertising, and then I went into e-commerce. Nothing really was a big hit, but I was learning and I was getting my hands dirty. And then and then before coming here, so around 12 years ago, I started an edtech company. So we were training engineers how to use Oracle databases in person in Ecuador and Peru. And then we thought, why don't we put this on demand online and we could sell it to more people across Latin America. And so I was a minority shareholder in that business. And when I left and I sold my stake back to the majority shareholder, we had more than 10,000 customers across 14 countries in Latin America. And that allowed me to finance my MBA and my relocation to Boston. And then I started Waku after my MBA, and here I am.
Wow, what a great journey. And I love what you said about how just because a startup wasn't necessarily the right thing at the right time, it was still a learning experience. You're always learning. You're always learning regardless, as long as you remain open to experience. And a great point that those were all learning experiences. And then you had that successful exit that brought you here to the States. And speaking of learning, then you come to Spark, and you are in charge of the Spark program. Tell me about how you came to be interested in entrepreneurship education and what your philosophy of entrepreneurship education has been.
This goes actually way back, maybe even 15 years ago, because funny enough, my sister and I had set up a nonprofit in Ecuador to teach entrepreneurship to low-income high school students. And so that then morphed into a class in my parents' school. And then my sister is still running that class up until today. It's called the Startup and Change the World. That was the original name we set up years ago. But honestly, I didn't do any of that after I moved here. And then in 2021, through a dear friend of mine, Boshanka, which was the former head of the Spark program at Brandeis. She connected me with Rebecca and the brother staff of the Brandeis Innovation Center, and they showed me what Spark was meant to do. And so I thought, it was the perfect opportunity to share some of the lessons learned, the hard earned lessons that I've gotten over the years. And I was already sort of doing that informally with many entrepreneurs that would reach out asking for help, especially in consumer packaged goods, but uh, broader industries from times to times. And so I figured this was the perfect opportunity to give a structure to what I was already doing, trying to help entrepreneurs avoid some of the mistakes I've made. And so when I think what I wanted to bring to Spark was mainly to try to reduce the feeling of it being an academic experience and try to make it a real world startup business experience. And so I think that I achieved that through a combination of the experience that I brought from real world, the experience with the nonprofit I set up with my sister, but then also from the education I got at Babson, which is, they have this methodology that is entrepreneurial thought and action um, all the time, everywhere. And so I think that the combination of those three things was really the core of what we did for these past 4 years and a half. And then the entire motto, if you will, was get out of the building, get out of the spreadsheet, get out of the PowerPoint presentation, go talk to customers, go learn, put a prototype out there, take the risk, take the chance, and then start learning, start failing, and then start pivoting.
Absolutely. And that kind of real world experience you can't get without getting out of the building. And that's one of the great strengths of the Spark program that you ran. What are some of the highlights you look back on over these past 4 years? Teams that stand out, experiences, sessions that stand out, some of our wonderful mentors. What would you say are some of the top three highlights that you can think of?
There are many. I mean, I can't believe it. It's hard to believe, but I actually run the Spark program for 4 years and a half, 5 cohorts. And in every cohort, we had an average of 12 teams. So you got 60 teams that I've worked with throughout these past few years. I mean, look, for me, it was just seeing students commit and make progress gave me a lot of joy. But obviously I got very, very excited when I saw a team or a student really make the leap into going full time into the venture and committing to it. And so on average, every year we would have about 1 or 2 teams who would really pursue this as their full-time job after the Spark program. And those teams, there is still quick slot health in the health tech space out there. There is still farmer foodie in the food space. There is a few others that are still out there and have raised capital, have launched their businesses, are generating revenue, are employing people. That really is for me, that's exactly what we intended to do with the program, right? So that brought me a lot of joy and pride. Besides that, obviously, it has been terrific to work with my colleagues, you, Bern, Raj, and the champions. So every year we hire a couple of students that are very driven, very passionate about entrepreneurship, and they help shape the Spark program. We empower them, we gave them responsibilities, and a lot of what we did was through them. And so working with them was always a highlight. And then we obviously have a broader community that supports the Spark program and supports our student entrepreneurs. And so many of the mentors, the judges, and even some professors on campus were really instrumental to help the teams make progress, help them get unstuck, and all of that has just been a treat to be a part of.
Absolutely. And you mentioned that, you went to Babson where they have this very strong entrepreneurial culture that is the whole purpose, really, of Babson education. Brandeis, very different institution, more of a liberal arts focus, even though we do also have a very strong scientific community. Spark has been integral to all of how we do entrepreneurship the Brandeis way. Can you tell me a little bit about what makes Spark special? What is that special magic the Spark program has? As somebody very well versed in entrepreneurship who's seen a lot of different programs, what makes Spark something different, something special?
I think you touched upon probably the key of why Spark was so special, and it's the quality of the students, the quality of the teams that come and go through the program. I mean, the diversity is just outstanding. You have scientists, you have PhD students, you can even have professors involved. You have business students, you have social justice, you have nonprofits. So I think you have the full gamut of industries and verticals. And and listen, I didn't know before coming to Spark, but they are very, very smart, driven people. And so it was at the same time inspirational and a little bit of a kick in the butt to make things better for me as well, because I mean, just the students are prepared and they are hungry. And so um, I think that that is so special about the Brandeis culture, that it's so diverse, but all of them so hungry to learn, and humble at the same time, that it made it super special.
You touch on something so important is that students come into the Spark program and into all of Brandeis's entrepreneurship programs from so many different disciplines. Brandeis obviously has this interdisciplinary culture. I think it also touches on something critical to remember about entrepreneurship is that anyone can be an entrepreneur. You don't need to be a scientist. You don't need to be an engineer. You don't need an MBA. You can be an anthropology major. You can be a psychology major. You still have what it takes to be an entrepreneur. What advice would you give to an emerging entrepreneur, whether they're a college student or whether there's somebody who's been in the workforce for a while, who thinks, oh, I don't have what it takes to be an entrepreneur because I don't have the quote unquote right background. How can they make that transition, that leap into being an entrepreneur from any discipline?
So more often than not, that happens because we are thinking about the last step of the process, right? So when you're let's say our undergrad students, they are thinking, okay, how do I go from where I am today to a $500 million exit in 10 years? Oh my God, that is so, I mean, it's overwhelming. You immediately feel paralyzed and overwhelmed. But when you start breaking that outcome into small, steady steps, things are a lot more manageable. And so, what I always shared with our students was just one step forward. And you don't need to understand the path right now, the entire path on how you're going to get to that outcome. You just need to understand what is the next step. And so, once you take the next step will become clearer. And so I think that the biggest advice was just to start today, because you already know what is that next step. And so start today, take action. Um, this entrepreneurship and business is not is not an exercise. It could be an exercise for the mind, but really nothing happens until you start doing it. And so do that today. Take that step, and then I can guarantee you will see what comes from there.
Put one foot in front of the other.
Yeah.
Just start. Just start.
Yep.
Well, you've done more than just start. I'm hearing that you and your partners at Waku have started to raise some significant funding and that Waku is taking off. I know that you've been in Whole Foods, that you are in Whole Foods. So now, as you leave your role here at Spark and you dedicate yourself full time to Waku, what's up next for you in your journey as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so we are really excited, and these are stories that I shared with the teams at Spark all the time. But in my initial business plan, we had a nine-figure exit 5 years before we started the business, and this is year six, and we're nowhere near where that initial business plan said we were supposed to be. And so usually things that are worth building take longer and are more expensive to build than what you originally thought of.
Hmm.
And that has been the case for us at Waku. So it took us a few years plus the pandemic in the middle to get our foothold and our presence established. But in 2023, we were fortunate to launch with Whole Foods. And it feels like it's a before and an after for consumer packaged good companies. Whenever you hit Whole Foods, the next step would be Costco. But when you start Whole Foods, they really give you the platform to put you in front of millions of consumers that are a good fit for the brand or the product that you're building. Usually in the industry that I operate, emerging companies are bring some type of innovation, functional, is healthier, reducing sugar. And so the Whole Foods consumer is the consumer that is looking to try this innovation. And so in 2023, we got into Whole Foods. The business changed. Today, we're the top two best-selling ready-to-drink tea at Whole Foods. And we started with only New York City. Now we're in New York State, New Jersey, and Connecticut. And starting in October, we're going to be all the way from North Carolina to Maine. And so we're more than doubling our Whole Foods presence, which is fantastic. And then we're also expanding to other regional chains in the Northeast. And so the Wegmans, the Market Baskets up in New England, Roach Brothers, and ShopRite and Moms. And so it feels that after 5 years, this is our sixth year in business, we're truly starting to scale up. And so more than doubling every year. We're hiring three more people this year. And so what else is next? We have a plan to get to 100 million in sales by 2031, and then figure out what comes from there. Normally, we've raised some outside capital, and we'll need to give our investors return. But at that point, we could explore getting into the system of the big Coke, Pepsi, KDP, Unilever, P&G, or or explore a transaction with a private equity. But we feel that we're just starting, and at the end of the day, Nico and I, my co-founder, were both students of business at heart. We like the process, and we're having so much fun right now scaling up that we see ourselves just keep doing this for the next few years.
That's awesome. Well, you mentioned something important about how whatever your plan is for your startup, it never survives contact with reality for very long. And you just have to be, again, open and flexible. Those are a couple of things I'm hearing you see. What are and another thing that I'm hearing you say is you found those customers who are the innovators, right? Who are looking for an innovative product and who want that innovative product. And of course, the methodology that you teach at InSpark is the lean startup methodology pioneered as by Eric Ries, but also by his mentor, Steve Blank. Steve Blank and his business model canvas. And they talk about finding those innovative customers. If somebody is listening or watching and they're at that early stage with their startup and they're hearing things like, well, your product is for everybody, or alternatively, they don't know who their customer is. How do founders find that innovative customer who's going to take a chance on their brand? What has been instrumental for you or for some of our Spark teams in finding that beachhead market and really finding those customers who are going to believe in you and become your advocates?
Very interesting question, and it's one that comes to when we're in class with the students. It comes very often, and I usually tell them that I love businesses that start with a niche in their mind because they're building a product that has already a consumer in mind. finding your beachhead was probably one of the hardest things for us in CPG, quite frankly. And so at the beginning, we couldn't really establish which consumer was the one that that we could land. And then Whole Foods gave us that avenue, and now we understand very well who's buying and why. But I think the main thing is to start gathering data, and so start gathering information pre-revenue or pre-product. That can be through customer interviews, which obviously we talk a lot about it, and we've trained all of our students to do is just set up. We use a book called the Mom Test that has been very helpful for that. So set up a list of questions, unbiased questions, and then go out and talk to people and try to understand what is the real problem that they have and what is the real problem that we're trying to solve. But once you hit once you hit the market, it's one is to start gathering information from your consumers, and there are many creative ways to do that. And the other one is to follow the dollars, follow the sales, and where things are sticking. And so I love when students come to Spark with a clear niche target and it works, but I also love when they come with an idea of who their customers will be. And then the first thing that happens is that after we start going to go through the program and we develop the business model canvas and the customer research questions, they realize that they really need a hard pivot in order to make it work. And I love that because, as you mentioned before, I haven't met yet a single entrepreneur who haven't pivoted, and you just need to listen to the market once you put things out there. And so the market will guide you.
The market will guide you, and I think that should be embroidered on a sampler. I haven't met a single entrepreneur yet who hasn't pivoted.
Yes.
That is so important for people to remember. So, to be a successful entrepreneur, our head of the Spark program is saying, be willing to pivot, let the market guide you, be open-minded, be resilient, know that it's a journey, know that there's going to be detours on that journey. And you have to really love the problem that you're solving and love those customers. So, thank you for this great sequence of insights. Back to what advice you would give
Yeah.
to the future Brandesian entrepreneur. We know that entrepreneurs can come from everywhere, any any major, any subject matter, any level of experience in the business world. If somebody right now is in the Brandeis community or even outside of it and thinking to do a startup, where should they start? What's the first step an aspiring entrepreneur should take?
I mean, definitely, if you're still a student and you're in a university, definitely start with the resources that are available to you in school. I mean, Spark is this perfect example on how you can leverage the knowledge and experience from others who have been there, done that. But not only that, is that then you become part of a community that um, shared values, shared interests, shared goals, both the students, mentors, instructors, the staff, and um, all of those can be very influential in the development of your venture and the development of yourself as the leader. And then it's not only knowledge, but it's also that first check. So one of the main challenges that we have as an entrepreneur is the funding piece, right? So not all of us have a rich uncle who can just sign your check. And so where are these first believers? And when you have an entrepreneurship program who can then go beyond the education and training and give you that first check to make some progress, and then use that momentum to go to the next one, and then go to angels, and then maybe go to institutional funding, uh, is great. And so I would start there. Now another thing that I tell our teams all the time is just reach out to people. I mean, what's the worst that can happen, right? So if you're thinking about starting a SaaS business, reach out to a SaaS entrepreneur who was successful. Maybe he's a brand alum, maybe not, but a quick LinkedIn message, respectful, short, to the point, and you would be surprised at how many successful entrepreneurs just want to give back and share the stories and the lessons they've they've learned. And so definitely leverage your ecosystem, reach out to people who have been there, done that, send those cold emails. You have nothing to lose. And then there is always the books as well. I mean, there's a wealth of knowledge out there in books from entrepreneurs who have built businesses and wrote their stories. I really enjoy those that to read those books, and I would suggest everybody to do that too.
Absolutely. No, that's awesome. Well, I just want to, you and I have worked together for 4 years, express my personal gratitude to you for all of the amazing leadership that you've shown. I think I speak for everybody at Brandeis that the Spark program would not have been the same without you. And the students were very fortunate to get the experience of a multi-time, very highly experienced and dedicated entrepreneur such as yourself.
Thank you, Christina. It makes me happy to hear those words. I think that we built a great team. Thank you so much for all the contributions to the program. And you, of course, you have tremendous marketing knowledge, and having you teach that class has always been great. And the students take a lot out of your experience. So thank you as well for all these years of work together.
Well, thank you. That was wonderful to hear. It really means a lot, especially coming from someone as experienced and talented as you. So you're now off to Waku full time. If someone's interested in Waku, if they're a potential investor or stakeholder, or they have a store that wants to carry Waku, or they're just a customer who wants to try your new approach to tea, what should they do? How can they follow your journey and how can they be a part of it?
Absolutely. Always open to connect. So my email is juan@livewaku.com. And then our website is www.livewaku.com. And there you can find all of our amazing products. If there is anything I can help with, either people who are part of the Brandeis community or not, I'm always open to connect. So please reach out.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Shows your great dedication to entrepreneurship and to helping students. Juan Giraldo, everybody, outgoing head of the Brandeis Innovation Virtual Incubator Spark program, sharing his entrepreneurship journey. Thank you again for being a guest here, Juan.
Thank you, Christina. Appreciate the time.
Thanks, everybody, for listening, and please do continue innovating.